Well, good evening, everyone. This is John Craig.
And this is Sandi. We are broadcasting right here from Amarillo, Texas. And we have a congregation here called Life of Worship.
And we broadcast that
via YouTube Live.
Yeah.
At Life of Worship Amarillo. Or you could go and join our YouTube channel, subscribe, and watch our videos and our teaching series. We have a few other fun things on there as well.
Yeah, so our email is low@lifeofworshipamarillo.org. It's sitting there going across the bottom of the screen there. You can check that out. And then also our website is basically what our email is. It's www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org.
And I want to jump in on our subject. Back in August of 19, I believe we started one show on worship. And then we went to Gates and we stayed there for a very long time. And I want us to return because there's such a lack of understanding of worship and praise, and in the midst of and how it's connected to the tabernacle and Yeshua, who is the tabernacle, who we are the tabernacle. I mean, you can look at it in so many ways. In a time of war, praise is integral. In a time of shalom, peace, praise is integral. Worship is integral. And I want us to go there and start down this road and see where it takes us. And to begin with, I want to just bring up the subject. How hard is it for people to thank Yah, to thank God? It doesn't come naturally. Even kids, what do you have to do? You have to teach them to be thankful. And then with a lot of people, they don't want to say it out loud, and much less demonstrate it in form or fashion. And so I want us to just understand some of the background, connect some of the pieces from the Hebrew roots Messianic movement, also looking at those that call themselves Christians too in the church, because some things they have a lot better handle on than we do. Or I don't say we. When I say we, I'm meaning in general. I'm not saying you or me or necessarily even who's listening right now, but somebody might tune into it. But we need to understand this concept because it is what should fill our day. Our motto is Life of Worship, is 24/7 worship. And that is really avodah, what work and worship, which they go hand in hand in Hebrew thought. It's not a set place and time that you separate 2 hours out of your day, or I guess for a lot of places that worship in the church, outside of the church, it's 15 to 30 minutes as supposed to set, and that's our time of worship. No, our worship should be 24/7. And we've got to understand that if we want to see Yah move on our behalf in this day and this hour when the world is falling apart around us, we need to live a life of worship. We need to live a life of thanksgiving. We need to live a life of praise. We need to understand why and how and correct our posture before Him and our posture before one another.
You know, it makes me think about something there, Sandi. And one of the things that's connected with worship is, of course, has to do with the sound of our voice. It has to do with really frequency. And if you think about the frequency, and which, when God spoke, what did He speak? What it came out, there's a frequency that came with that. And I'm just thinking about how 5G, even how most songs in America are all tuned to a particular frequency of 440, and how with all of the things that are going on, especially with the rioting, with things that are so negative in our culture, it's frequency, and we have to reset our frequencies. In fact, in worship at Life of Worship, we reset our tuning.
We don't even tune to what the rest of the United States tunes to, because it's not healing.
Yeah.
It's actually the tuning the United States adapted in our instruments. We tune to what the Nazis tune to. We tune to what Israel tunes to. Which
is, well, what to 444, which
that's a whole teaching. You need to bring that out.
Well, we need to talk that. Yeah, maybe we should bring that up. And because we use 444 because it's the frequency of worship. It is the frequency of biblical worship. And
frequencies matter.
Yeah, it really does. And when we have the things that are going on today, things that want to disrupt our worship, it's that much more that we need to intensify to really break that pattern, because frequencies are all around us. But when we have the frequency of praise, it is sound waves going into the environment that we're living in. It has a physical effect and it has a spiritual effect.
And thus, when we're tuned to, think about this, when we tune our instruments, secular and in churches, when we tune to the frequency the Nazis tuned to, that frequency is not healing.
No, that frequency was meant to stir up the crowds, to cause emotional changes. That's cacophonic. Honestly, it's a dissonance and a discord within the human body, because even our cells in our bodies, we know about, because there's frequency in essential oils. There's essentially that actually puts things back into alignment in our body. But it's the same thing with sound waves. And that when you have the wrong frequency going in, it sets the body off. It
That's
sets
right.
it physically and spiritually and emotionally off. Think about the music that they're using, even on the streets of America where the rioting's taking place, and they're bringing their, what's it doing? It's stirring up the crowds. What happens with, in fact, there was a movie it was called The Kingsman, where it talked about cell phone frequency, and one of the scenes was terrifically and horrifically violent, but they used cell phone technology that
I think it's already going on.
It went off at the same time. What? To create an emotional violence and anger against one another
that they couldn't control.
And so I'm wondering, with 5G, which so many towers were set up,
they put them all in the schools,
and they're putting them in the major cities. And then what do we have now? We've got people stirred up in rioting in the major cities. Mm-hmm. And so are they, what's going on there? We don't know. And we may never know.
But let's not be ignorant.
But let's not think that these weapons would not be used against people. And we need to make sure that our body is resonating with the right frequencies.
I think that, we'll, in the next week or two, we're going to try to bring the difference between 440 and 444 and how the frequency affects us and affects our worship. But before we get started, I want to do two things. I want you to read Psalm 100.
All right. So here we have, shout joyfully to Yahweh, all the earth. Serve Yahweh with gladness. Come before him with joyful singing. Know that Yahweh himself is God. It is he who has made us and not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him. Bless his name. For Yahweh is good, his loving kindness is everlasting, and his faithfulness to all generations.
All right. Now I want to read you an excerpt from one of the books that I've had in my library for a long time. It is The Audience of One by Mike Pilavachi, and it's really good. It's just really good. But I want to read you a testimonial. And it's about Mike himself. He said, I've been a deacon of a Baptist church in Harrow, and everything that could have gone wrong did. From relationships to work, it seemed like my life was a disaster zone. I left the church completely broken, thinking that I was never going to be happy. As I joined St. Andrews, I heard about the conference. Anyway, it goes about John Wimber was hosting, and I went along and was blown away by it all. He was funny. His teaching was brilliant. I had never heard anything like it before, and the ministry times were amazing. There were many things to experience, many new things to experience, but what stood out most was the worship. It unhinged me. I love that phrase. It unhinged me. I spent a whole part of the week just crying and snuffling my way through songs like Isn't He Beautiful and Hold Me, Lord, in Your Arms. Many of the songs were incredibly simple and yet totally intimate. As I worshiped, I found healing for my soul. Intimacy set me free. Finally, I found a way of expressing a relationship with God where I could feed on the truths that I desperately needed to hear, that God loved me, he forgave me, he liked me. As I drank it all in, I began to want more, as if I had woken a thirst deep within. Okay, guys, I don't know if you have ever been a part of a worship service that was just intimate, that Again, I'm not talking about, so we did fast song. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking where people are sold out to him, not concerned about when the message is going to come, or if there even is one, that aren't concerned about who's doing what, the flag's going on, or people are being inappropriate, where they're totally sold out. But once you've tasted it, you thirst and you yearn for more, because there's an intimacy and a power that is so present. It's almost like, because Yahweh does inhabit our praises, and we're going to talk about that, what that means in the Hebrew. But you can feel like there's a river that's going on, and you can go to service and nobody even has to lay hands on you. When you're worshiping, there's healing, there's deliverance. Now that can happen too in the midst of it. There's words that flow, and there's a reason that stuff usually flows out of worship, and it's devoid in most Messianic and Hebrew root circles, because we leave out worship. Or if we call worship singing a few songs. That's not worship. And worship is when you're sold out. Worship is not the act of singing a song. Worship is not just the act of speaking the word. Worship is not just the act of doing a motion because that you're expected to. Worship is out of the abundance of your heart, unhinged. I think that's a word David would have used, in what David did do when he says, I'll be more undignified than this. Unhinged for him because of praise. We don't sacrifice animals anymore right now. We have no temple, but we are the temple. We are the temple of the Ruach HaKodesh.
We're the living sacrifice.
We're the living sacrifice. Therefore, what we do with ourselves is so important, because we offer ourselves up. Those offerings were off, especially the Olah was offered with thanksgiving, with praise, with hands lifted high. So should it be when we give of ourselves, because we are the ones that are supposed to burn on the altar. We are the ones that are supposed to be the burning ones. And when you truly will give way to that and not worry about who says what, does what, then you will experience something you never have, and you'll never go back, and you'll never want to settle for just singing a song or going through some motions. And it's missing in the Hebrew. It's messianic. There's some congregations that are changing, but that needs taught. Worship has been such a vital part of our lives. And I know at Christ for the Nations, where you went to Bible school after college, you always told me, you would, and I've seen you when we've gone to worship conferences there. The music starts, he goes down on the ground with his face buried, whether it's in tears or in just, he can't stand under the power and the presence, nor does he want to, and he could care less. You see him bopping up and down for a while with his hands raised, and all of a sudden you hit the floor, and we don't see you again, and for another hour or two, because worship there can last about 2 hours. So, and it's not enough. When you don't even know 2 hours have passed, it's still not enough.
Yeah. Oh, I tell you this, my first time I went to Christ for the Nations, and we had chapel every day. Well, chapel was mainly worship before we went to class. And I'd get there, that the music would start, and the tears would just flow from it was like I was a mess during the entire time of worship, because the presence of God was there. It was so healing. It was so refreshing. It was so renewing. It was like the power of his presence just caused my heart to melt. It's intimacy like that is really that connection of a living relationship with our Father, whose love is everlasting. Just like we read, it endures forever. I mean, the English language doesn't even give depth to it.
No.
So, but worship is where our hearts are captured by his presence. It's like Isaiah, and I always use this example in Isaiah chapter 6, where Isaiah says, I am undone.
Right.
Because in the presence of God, what do you do? I mean, when we see John, who comes in the presence of God in the book of Revelation, what happens? He falls down. And he has to be lifted back up, because he is just overwhelmed by the weightiness of the kabod, the glory the kavod, the glory, the weightiness of the presence
the weightiness
of God.
of the presence of Yahweh.
And it's not like a heavy weightiness like that's in this world. It's the weightiness of such divine presence, of divine pleasure, of divine goodness.
But also teshuva. There's teshuva involved in it.
Well, because you see the face of God,
you go
see
repenting.
you come into this place of such holiness and purity that everything else just can't stand. It just gets pressed out of you.
You're like, Father, I'm so sorry. I haven't given myself to you. And I want to encourage you, if you're a part of a congregation that doesn't worship, if you believe Yah has placed you there, then try to talk to them. Try to bring in some people that understand worship, or find a place that does worship and make that a secondary part. Maybe it's on Sunday morning, or find a congregation that worships, that's full of the Spirit and the gifts and praying and for people and ministering to people, as well as teaching the Torah and the testimony of Yeshua. That we've got to have all of it in this day and this hour for the days ahead. And there's so much meaning and in worship, if we would truly understand. And most people try to explain it away, but it is the one act we have, that in prayer, which really worship and go hand in hand. And Laura, you said you have no congregation. Well, you know what? You can tune in with us every week.
Life of Worship on YouTube.
Yes, we would love to have you. We have others that are from different places throughout the United States that have that join us, and you are so welcome to be a part of that. And maybe we can meet you one of these days. So I'm not sure from where you are. You're from New York, okay? But we would love to have you as part. But anyway, we need to connect the dots, and we need to live like this. And Psalm 100 is powerful. Psalm 100 verse 4, we've talked about gates and praise and thanksgiving and worship, and briefly, but we're going to go into a lot more depth. I want us to look at some different worship terms, and we'll go into more depth of them later. But what is the meaning of English worship? We need to look. So we look at some different Hebrew words. And as I said, we'll go into more depth in them in some other teachings. But we have shachah, which is the Hebrew word for worship. We have proskinio, which is the Greek word for worship. Halal, which they say means exuberant praise. And shabach, which is loud praise. And tehillah, a word for song of praise. And zamar, a Hebrew word for making music accompanied by strings. And yada, a Hebrew word for raising up your hands in thanksgiving and praise. Yada. And todah, a thanks offering. And barak, which is a word for kneeling before Yahweh in humble submission. And all of these words should play a part in our worship every day. And then the big event when we come together, because something happens when we come together with our voices raised, hand in hand, arm in arm, however it may be. But when we look at, let's go to Psalm 100 and verse 4 specifically, we're going to see 4 of these words used. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and enter into his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and bless his name. This looks to be technically correct, but to capture all the rich meaning behind these, you truly got to get into the Hebrew. So if you look at it, you can say, enter into his gates with a gift of thanks, todah. His courts with songs of praise, tehillah. Raise your hands in thanksgiving, yada, and humbly kneel, barak, before his name. So we have 4 different Hebrew words that are represented right there, and it's all very demonstrative. Did anybody see being passive when people are supposed to be pouring themselves on the altar, which usually happens during worship and praise?
You mean we don't bow ourselves in our head,
or stand there like a
statue? No. It's
which is very Gnostic, by the way.
Yeah, it is Gnostic.
Very Greek-minded.
It's but when our body gets involved, what's going on in our spirit, it changes everything. And that's what being Hebrew is about. It's always about action. It's about what we do, and it's not I mean, some people in America, and this is where we've got a big problem with it. They don't have a problem with this in Africa. They don't have a problem with this in South America and other different places where they're more demonstrative. But in America, in many places in America, we become stoic because, well, if I do something and then I'm just drawing attention to myself and I'm drawing attention away from God. No,
nobody's attention is on you.
Who
anyway.
cares?
It's on him.
And you got it backwards. You got to flip that thing around. And because and guess what, when you flip it around and just to do it, because it's not about us anymore, it's about him. When we flip it around, then what happens? Then it's contagious. People say, you're doing it, maybe I should do it. And people may follow your lead, may follow that example. And I love it because, I'm thinking about one couple that's joined up with their congregation and they worship. They're loud in their worship. They just give it to Yah. I love it when you go to certain congregations where that is just the way it is. They're a lively people and an active people. And that's, if you're not, then you're like, they're looking at you going, how come you're not worshiping? So, I mean, honestly,
if you're giving a sacrifice of praise, that means your body's involved.
Well, it's an Olah offering, like you said earlier. And what is the Olah offering? It is an offering. It's the burnt offering that you leave totally on the altar all night long.
And you are the Olah offering that's supposed to burn for him.
Yeah, so that there's nothing left of that offering. It's not where you take it off when the meat's cooked and you share it with the priest, where everybody's participating. That's other offerings are for that. This is the one where it's all laid down.
That's right. And that's what we are to be. We're to be completely laid out, spent, unhinged, undone, undignified. Those words are pretty powerful words and passionate words. And emotion is involved. Emotion done correct. It's supposed to be. Yahweh is emotional. He has those. We're not going to go through all that right now, but it's important. So when we look at, let's just break it down, because I want to get to Judah here in just a moment. Shakah is actually the primary word for worship in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament, and praise is supposed to be a gift or offering that we bring our King. You've heard, when we enter his presence, when you enter the presence of a king, you're supposed to bring a gift. And that is protocol. That is even earthly protocol. When you go visit a king, and even today, if you went to the king and queens, you need to bring a gift. And when you go to somebody's home, even, they're not kings and queens, but you're supposed to bring a gift. There's something about that, but especially the king. So if we are going in and we desire Yahweh's presence, if we desire Yeshua to just rain down, the Holy Spirit to fill the house, don't we need to offer up something? Do they want something physical? No, yes, in a way. Yeah, they want you. They want you. So we enter into the presence of a king with a gift, with everything that we have. It's common practice even today. So we're encouraged to offer what? We praise through singing, through dancing, through the speaking of the word, through prayer, through flags and tambourines and instruments and art. There are so many ways to praise him. And it's beautiful to see them all come together. But we're also physical beings, so we should always our praise, our burning should be physical.
Well, let me just say this. In the dance you mentioned, mm-hmm. the dance, and I love the circle dance and all that, and that's a lot of fun. But sometimes it's not about the circle dance. Sometimes
you need to break off and have a dance that is just prophetic. That's just him.
Because what did David? David wasn't in a circle dance when he was
his own circle, maybe.
When he was coming into Jerusalem and they were bringing the ark in, he danced his clothes off. He was all the way down to his ephod. He was just undignified in it. But he was worshiping with the fullness of the presence of God on him. I mean, that's so right. Much. Even remember, think about this. His own wife thought and spoke negatively about that, and she was cursed in her womb because of that. She became unfruitful.
So should we ever sit back and say, I can't believe they're worshiping like that? Really, it's a judgment on us if those thoughts even go into our mind, because we shouldn't be watching. We should be demonstrating.
We will become barren, and we don't want to be barren.
Yeah.
Because we've been commanded to be fruitful and multiply. I mean,
just think about the verse we just read. In it, we had kneeling. In it, we had hands raised for worship, for praise. It just in one verse of Psalms, and Psalms is all through it. It's all throughout the Psalms. It's even in the Old Testament. You just have to know how to look at it, as well as the New. We know that those verses specifically talk about raising hands and kneeling or bowing or whatever you want to say, but we also bless Yahweh by submitting ourselves to Him. Remember, our will is no longer what we want, is really irrelevant, because we become children of the King. And it's all about he now has us. It's what does he want? But there's this progression in this verse.
Yeah,
I will enter his gates with thanksgiving in my heart, and enter his courts with praise.
Give thanks to him, bless his name.
There is this progression in this verse. We come to Yah's gate and we offer our thanks, and we walk into his court singing praise, and then we approach his throne with our hands lifted high, both in thanksgiving and praise. That's like surrender. Having your hands raised is like surrender, but it's also spiritual warfare. And then we can no longer stand in his presence, and we kneel at his feet. That's a picture of worship. Now, you may say, okay, whatever, that's just not what I believe. Well, I'm so sorry. But let's just do a short little look at what happens if we're in battle. Are you guys in battle today? Do you have obstacles that you're trying to come, situations in your home life, in your work life, in your family life that you're trying to rectify? Well, let's see how we come before him. Let's turn to Second Chronicles 20. Can you give a little background of what's happening?
Basically, they're coming up against the sons of Moab.
So great
and
enemy.
The sons of Ammon and Ammon and the Menuhites, and it's a great battle. They've been called to join together, and it's bigger than Judah itself.
Impossible without Yahweh.
That's right.
At least it seems that way in the world's eyes.
Yeah.
So how do you fight? How do you fight an enemy like that?
So Jehoshaphat says, hey, how are we going to do this? He prays. He brings in the prophet, asking the prophet, what do we do? And who comes back and says, you need not to fight in this battle. Station yourselves, stand and see the salvation of Yahweh on your behalf, O Judah and Jerusalem. Do not fear or be dismayed. Tomorrow go out to face them, for Yahweh is with you. And that's verse 17. So then it jumps down to verse 19. It says, and the Levites from the sons of the Kohathites, and of the sons of the Korahites stood up to praise Yahweh Elohim of Israel.
What did they do?
They stood up to praise.
So they didn't even do it in the sitting down posture.
Yeah, and that is that word stood up to praise is the word halal, which you talked about, which is
we're going to go into that more later.
And it says Yahweh Elohim of Israel with a very loud voice.
Okay, so did they praise like this? They stood up and go,
oh yeah.
No, it was loud. It was boisterous. Everyone could hear. Everyone could see.
And then in verse 20, it says, and they rose early in the morning and went out to the wilderness of Tekoa. And when they went out, Jehoshaphat stood and said, listen to me, O Yehudah, and inhabitants of Jerusalem. Put your trust in Yahweh your Elohim, and you will be established. Put your trust in the prophets and succeed. And when he had consulted with the people, he appointed those who sang to Yahweh and those who praised him in holy attire as they went out before the army and said, give thanks to Yahweh, for his loving kindness is everlasting.
And what happened?
And when they began singing and praising, Yahweh set ambushes against the sons of Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir, which is Edom, and who had come against Yehudah, and they were routed. For the sons of Ammon and Moab rose up against the inhabitants of the Mount Seir, destroying them completely. And when they had finished with the inhabitants of Seir, they helped to destroy one another.
Okay, go back, turn your page back. I want you to read that sentence at the bottom, or that part, that
when they began singing and praising, Yahweh set ambushes against.
Okay, I want you to understand, we praise in all circumstances. When they began singing and praising, then Yah set up the ambushes. When we surrender ourselves and begin to burn for him as an Olah offering, then he goes out and he takes care of it. What is our job? Our posture is to worship him, to become undone before him, to surrender ourselves before him, to burn for him brightly, to not worry about how we're going to get fed or what new word we're going to conjugate in Hebrew or what new fact we might find out. No, that's all good and it's in its place.
Yes.
But if we're in a time of war and if we're a time of shalom, as I started the show, we should be in worship. Now, with that being said, I want us to really. You want to say something?
Okay, yeah, I did want to say this because think about this. So you said even in the time of shalom, so in a time of peace, because think about this, we never know what ambushes are been set before us.
If there's something there, Yah knows.
And yeah, he knows. So if we set the atmosphere right, if we've gone forth with loud praises, then what's going to happen to those ambushes where the enemy turns against himself? I mean, wow, we may never know until we are with Yeshua about what we did and what we've done. Or shall we say it this way, what could have happened had we praised?
Right. You need to praise. And here's something I want to encourage you. There are things going on in your home. Shut the television off, video games, social media.
Change the frequency.
But shift the atmosphere of your home.
Yes.
Not just Christian songs or Hebrew songs. You need worship. You need worship to play in your home, at your job, if you can, at your job. In your ear, whenever it is, 24/7. You need to remove the distractions from your home. If you shift the atmosphere in your home, it's going to shift the way you feel and it's going to shift the way you approach things. So there's some great stuff out there that when it turns on, I just hit my face and just surrender before him. Sometimes, like you said earlier, it's crying out and saying, Father, I'm so sorry. You're so holy. You're so amazing. Sort of like Isaiah 6. And other times it's my spirit is so lifted up and my outlook changes because I've shifted what's around me. Now think about water. You play some metal music or some certain things and you pour water down a ladder. The water's going to do this as it falls instead of just falling like a waterfall.
It becomes jagged.
If you play worship or words of praise or worship songs or even kind words, the water will fall normally. But when you change, depending on what's playing and what things respond to frequencies. You've seen the things on YouTube about water crystals, how water crystals can be beautiful if worship and kind words are played before them. And if harsh words and things are spoken, they're ugly and deformed. And the same with plants, and rice begins to mold. There are so many things that show the frequency of the words and what we listen to matters. So shift the atmosphere of your home. Now, with that being said, I want us to jump into continue to look at this word Yada, because there's controversy over Yada, but it is spelled with a yod, a dalet, and a hey. Okay, yod, dalet, and hey, and every word means something. Maybe we can break it up into the paleo. I don't know that we'll have time this week, but it means to lift up your hands in praise, and it's so descriptive. It's supposed to be how we follow him, how we live our life with our hands in surrender. Like I said, worship involves our service as well. It's a 24/7 thing. But specifically, man, Yada, raising your hands, that's a posture before him. And especially we should be doing it when we're giving him praise and honor and glory and worship, because it's so descriptive. Let's read Genesis 29:35.
When she conceived again and bore a son and said, "This time I will praise Yahweh." Therefore she named him Yehuda. Then she stopped bearing.
If you read what it says and you break it up, what it means, and she conceived again and bare a son, and she said, "Now I will praise Yahweh." Therefore she called his name Judah or Yehuda and left bearing. Now I will praise. I will praise. There's a reason. We all have a reason to praise. I don't care if life seems to be messed up. You still have life. You still have breath. Look at the circumstances of what you have and not what you don't have, and praise him for those things. Praise him for those things. Now, when we look at the tribe of Judah, when we look at the tribe of Yehuda, we always see them leading. Why do you think Judah leads? Because because the praise goes first. Praise always precedes everything. If we want to be successful, Judah goes first. Judah always leaves the 12 tribes out, and praise leads us. Jehoshaphat's is victorious over Ammon and Moab because he sent praises first. The Levites praised first. Judah, which means hands of praise too. So you're looking at now I will praise, but it also means hands of praise. The hands of praise lead. Let's look at Numbers 2:9.
Okay, 2:9. All right. The total of the numbered men of the camp of Yehuda, 186,400. By their armies they shall set out first.
And my version says, all that were numbered in the camp of Judah were 100,000 and 400,000 and 6,400 throughout their armies. These shall first set forth.
Yeah.
So basically, those who choose, if you choose to lift up your hands in praise and obedience to the God of Israel, to Yahweh our Elohim, to Yeshua, then you are joining with Judah in the eyes of him, because praise goes first. Praise goes first. Always. What is in your life? Is your life full of criticism and doubt and unbelief? Are you calling things that you see? And yeah, they may be reality. They may be a reality to you, but is that what your focus is? Is that what you're repeating over and over? Or do you call things that are not as though they are? Do you lift up your hands in praise? Do you choose to look at what you have and not what you don't have? Do you choose to look at the circumstances around you, even if it's just one, and praise him for that one? And by the way, we have more than one, because we can't live in this hour when the riots are going on and the people in the media are twisting things that are happening and trying to just bring everything down as we know it. Though 1,000 may fall at our side and 10,000 at our right hand, it will not come near us, because we have shifted the atmosphere, because our focus is on him. We don't trust in the circumstances around us or what's happening. We stand with our armor on, with the praise in our mouth, and we praise him for what we have. And he goes out. Remember, he sets the ambushes. Let's read 1 Peter 2:9.
All right. So, but you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him, or show forth his praise,
the praises
of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light.
So he says right there, we're to show forth his praise. That's what we need to do, folks. We are so glad that you've joined us this evening, and we will continue this discussion next week. Hey, please like and share. Also, come and join our YouTube channel and join us for services. If you don't have a place, then you can't get to Amarillo, Texas, then join us online for our tour portion and our services both. And we would love to have you. Drop us you can look at our website and get our email.
Right. You got our email there. Our website's there. You get our email. You'll have a physical address if you go to our website.
And we will see you next time. Until then, my name is Sandi.
And this is John.
Shalom.
Shalom.